Hello and a very warm welcome to the Phoenix Mindset Podcast, the podcast for success and happiness. My name is Sonja Piontek, and I'm super excited to be here with you today for this special episode with my friend Rusty Labuschagne, a man falsely accused for a murder that never happened. He spent a decade in prison, was stripped totally from his dignity and lost everything. How this incredible Zimbabwean not only survived physically, but more importantly, mentally, is a truly unique and inspiring story. And I'm grateful beyond words to have Rusty here with us today to share his story and how he learned what freedom really means and how it is in our hands and in our hands only to live a happy, content, and free life. Rusty, I cannot express how grateful I am to be here with you today and for you to share your incredible and so deeply inspiring story. Over to you, dear Rusty, and thanks again for being here in the Phoenix Mindset Podcast. Rusty, it is an immense pleasure to have you here today. I'm grateful that you agreed to share your story with our audience, and I am even more grateful to call you a friend. Rusty, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Sonja, and thanks so much for the privilege of the platform to share my story. And
you're more than welcome.
Thanks.
All yours. Tell us your story.
I'm a fourth-generation Zimbabwean from a cattle ranching background, come from humble beginnings. When I left school, I went into the safari industry. I was very lucky to be a good sportsman. I played rugby for my country. But I had a hunger for success, having grown up humbly. So I went, after a few years of the safari business, I realized I could make as much money for the guys I was working for with only a handful of clients. So I went off on my own, and I was very, very lucky. I worked hard, I played hard, and I lived what you might call a very successful life. Mm-hmm. With numerous thriving businesses at the end. And by the year 2000, I was flying my own aircraft, making plenty of money in my safari business. I had a fishing resort on the shores of beautiful Lake Kariba in Zimbabwe, flashy cars, houseboats, speedboats, you name it. So life was fantastic. And I was engaged to a lovely lady that we were supposed to get married 4 months after my incarceration. And then I had at my fishing resort on Lake Kariba, I had 9 guests with me. And I left them, 7 of them fishing in the river. And a friend of mine and I decided to go tiger fishing for tiger fish on the lake. And on our way back, we spotted 2 fish poachers in a steel boat. So we immediately fish poachers, yeah.
So people stealing big fish.
Yeah, people must understand worldwide, and they probably don't, that poaching is something that will always be there in Africa. It's something that you control. It's not something that you eliminate.
Okay.
It's nothing like that. And as a safari operator, whether you're fishing, photographic, or hunting, you're responsible for anti-poaching. So you have anti-poaching units, and you feed game during droughts and reintroduce game that's been shot out over the years. And so you care about your animals and the areas, whether it's fish or animals. And my responsibility on the lake in the area that I was in was to protect it from netting, because it was a fish breeding area. Mm-hmm. So we were non-consumptive. We were catch and release, mainly on fly fishing. Mm-hmm. And these poachers were an endless problem for me. Anyway, I saw them on my way back to join my group that day. And they started paddling hastily for the shore in an effort to get away from us. There were two of them in their small steel boat, and it was my friend and I in my boat. And I thought, well, let me just scare them, because it was late in the evening and it's 2 hours to take them in and 2 hours back. So I turned my boat close to their boat, and the wake of my boat tilted their boat, causing them to jump out into the water, which was about 5 feet deep, 1.5 meters, and they were about 3 meters from the shore.
Okay, so not dangerous, but scary.
Yeah, and they scrambled to dry land, and my friend and I watched as they ran away into the bush and thought nothing more of it. The following day, the police arrived with one of the poachers and accused us of drowning the other one.
What?
To cut a long story short, without a body, against police evidence, and on presumptions, I was convicted of drowning that poacher. I just wanted to paint a picture briefly, Sonia, as to the conditions and in the country at that time. It was during the land invasion chaos, and injustice had crept in countrywide. And this is the sort of thing that took place. And I never thought much of it, obviously when I was released, because we were accused. 3 days later, they told us to report to the police station. I reported there with my friend. We were arrested immediately. We spent 8 days in the holding cells until we got bail pending trial. And the political side of it just escalated, as did in the whole country.
But let's just quickly recap. You had not killed anyone. There was no body. No one was dead. And you were accused of killing a person that was still alive. Correct. Ooh.
And in the court case, Sonia, the ironic thing was that almost no time or on the trial was put proving somebody died. It was just an assumption that no, the crocodiles ate him, and they had a state witness stating that at no time in his 18 years on the lake, and he's witnessed over 30 people eaten by crocodiles, is there never anything recovered. So one thing is, it's not nice to talk about it, but a crocodile can't swallow a human's head.
Okay.
Always parts of clothing or limbs or something left over. And the Sub Aqua unit arrived shortly after the incident. They searched the whole bay. They reported the visibility was excellent, and nothing was recovered. And it was 8 meters deep, so it wasn't deep.
Okay.
Anyway, 2.5 years later, I was convicted. And ironically, my co-accused only got a $10 fine and was set free because he was not driving the boat. And that is exactly as it was stated in the judgment.
Whoa.
And I got 15 years, of which 5 were removed as remission.
So you spent 10 years in prison for a murder or a killing that never happened?
That never took place. Very hard pill to swallow. And Sonia, one thing I just want to say is that the two things that I want to point out before I get started is, the first is that I'm innocent, and I want to reiterate that. I was ripped from my life and loved ones for years and spent a decade in prison. The second thing I want you to know is that I'm not free because I'm no longer incarcerated. My freedom means a lot more than that. It's a deeper freedom. And it is my road to this freedom that I share with my audience today.
Wow, I have goosebumps.
Yeah, along with all the other life lessons I learned, which I'd like to cover, later on. But when you go into somewhere like that, Sonia, there are a lot of questions that you ask yourself. Why me? What did I ever do to deserve this? Now, is this real? Does everyone else here feel the pain I'm feeling?
It's hard to comprehend.
Yeah, am I dreaming? Will I wake up and it'll all be over? Have I been put here to be protected? There were a lot of guys disappearing in those days. It was wild. It was, during Mugabe's era, it wasn't nice. And then I thought to myself, I'd always told my children that everything happens for a reason in life. So now I had to walk my talk and accept that. And honestly, that is the only way I got through there, Sonia.
Oh.
You tell myself that there has to be a reason for this. And
Wow.
let me give you an example of my first day in prison, Sonia.
So hard to even imagine.
Yeah. Well, when you come from somebody that's done something with his life, I was very successful. I started with nothing. I worked very hard. I had 54 guys working for me. I had created something to be proud of, and I was something in society. I wasn't just a street kid, I'd done my time. I worked hard for what I had. And then when you go through and you're convicted. So I got convicted on the 3rd of April, 2003. And the shock was inexpressible. I mean, I was innocent.
It's hard to imagine. It's impossible to imagine, I believe.
Yeah. And then, the sound of that judge's gavel striking the solid bench is something, and it seemed like it was yesterday. It's so clear. And of course, all the drama and the pain of all the expressions on my relatives' faces up in the gallery around courthouse, and then they all surrounded me in the wooden dock for my last few minutes of freedom, and I drew strength from their love and support. But inside, my world was crumbling. I mean, I was devastated. I'd been convicted of a crime that never happened. And that's a hard pill to swallow. But that was just the beginning. That was a droplet of the downpour that lay ahead. To give you an example, when we got to the prison, the first thing is when you get there, they make you strip naked. And then you're given one set of clothing at any one time only. So it's a short-sleeved white shirt and a pair of drawstring white shorts. Underwear was forbidden.
Wow.
After 6 months, you got a change of clothing.
Oh.
You're never allowed to be seen with more than one set of clothing, or it would be taken away. And the beatings, Sonia, I don't even want to go there, but the beatings were horrific, with rubber battens under the feet. Yeah, it was inhumane but for some of the stuff I don't want to talk about, you can find in my book. Which has got all the details. I mean, I've got 10 years of stuff to talk about. But
pretty intense, I believe.
Yeah. And then, Sonia, I was led up to my cell after I was given my one set of clothing. And the cells were 13 meters long by 3 meters wide. We were 79 guys in there.
Let me just capture that. 13 by 3 meter for over 70 guys.
79 guys.
Wow.
Yeah, there was a toilet, a stainless steel bowl sunk into an open 1 meter square cement block in one corner. That was the toilet. So you were packed like sardines on your sides with legs all crossing over in the middle because it's only 3 meters wide. And you all faced the same direction. When you turned over, it was all together because we only had 33 centimeters each.
Oh.
That was your space. I mean, in prison, just remember, there's no furniture whatsoever in a prison in Africa. There's no beds, no tables, no chairs, no cupboards, nothing. Oh. It's not even a mirror, Sonia. I didn't see my face for the first 8 years. It's just rows of filthy folded blankets and hundreds of well-used water bottles on bare concrete floors because there are no taps or basins in the cells. And then, as cushioning against the cold concrete floor because it's freezing. I mean, it's just steel and cement. There's no furniture. And the cold would come from the bottom.
Yeah, Africa does get very cold at night.
Yeah, it does, for sure. It freezes. I mean, we get to freezing often. But as cushioning against that cold concrete floor, you got 3 worn-out Lice-ridden blankets. You'd fold 2 of them several times to fit your 33 centimeters. Then you cover yourself with the third one. And your clothes were wrapped around your toothbrush and toothpaste, or they'd get stolen, and that was your pillow.
Oh.
Yeah, it was
Inhumane is a good word that you used before.
Yeah, demeaning is. I mean, it was very, very testing. Very. I mean, those floors are cold and hard, and not even the breath you take is your own. There's no space, and packed so close together that what someone else exhales, you inhale.
So 33 centimeters per person, realistically.
Yeah, one guy's head is right at your nose, and the other one's breathing at the back of your head. Oh. It was something else. But Sonia, in those terrible conditions, you always look for positives. And I remember,
even just Rusty, if I may interrupt you here.
Yeah,
I think that alone shows how incredibly special you are to be able to look something positive in a situation as devastating as that.
Wow. Yeah, so you can't lower yourself to be affected by people because they try and break you in there, or circumstances. Because us humans, we all carry, I don't want to sound arrogant or whatever, but we all carry a hero inside us. Mm-hmm. And very few people are pushed to where you have to find that. And when you're pushed so low that you have to dig really deep to find solutions to get through there, you grow and you learn lessons others never have to.
Yeah.
And we all have it inside us. A lot of people say, no, there's no one else that could have got through there. And I said, no. A lot of people, they whine about the bad hair day or the car's not starting or the airplane's late or whatever. That's not something to whine about. And the loss of freedom, people don't appreciate that. And when you have your freedom taken away, never mind the conditions, just like lockdown, for example, Sonia, when you're locked in your room and you can't go anywhere, there's something about having no freedom that is tough to live with.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, one of the things that kept me a little bit uplifted every day was watching the pigeons fly over the high razor wire topped walls after they'd eaten the pieces of leftovers on the exercise yard floor. And I wished a million times that I could somehow fly away with them and be free again. And I don't believe there's a prisoner that doesn't think that, because it is the only glimpse of freedom you get to see in there. It's a harsh place. The other thing that was, I believe, the hardest thing for me to deal with, Sonia, were the lice.
Oh.
There were thousands of them.
In your blankets and everywhere.
I'd never seen lice in my life before. And when I went in there, they just crawled and bit you day and night, leaving.
Worse than mosquitoes?
There were mosquitoes as well, but
are lice worse than mosquitoes?
Yes, because they bit you day and night.
Ah.
And they're in your clothes, in your blankets, in your hair, everywhere. They're on the walls, they're everywhere. And no matter how often we spent hours killing them. But it didn't make much difference. There were thousands.
Wow.
And that for me was the hardest. I can sleep on the floor. There were a lot of more hardships I'll tell you about. And I can handle those things. But the lice, they weigh you down. Yeah. Hour after hour, day after day, year after draining year.
Never stops.
Never stops. But that for me was the hardest. And then, Sonia, because we only had one set of clothing, and we had no basins or taps in the cells, we had to wash our clothes in the cell toilets at night wearing a blanket, then hang them on the walls with smuggled book staples to dry by the next morning.
Sorry, say that again. You washed your clothes in the toilet that almost 80 guys used during the day.
Correct.
Whoa.
Yeah. Whoa. And 3 or 4 of us would get together and take turns to wash our clothes, because one garment, like a shirt or shorts, had to be used to block the toilet to allow the toilet bowl to fill up when attempting to flush, because then no toilet in any prison flushed.
Oh, okay.
It just dribbled in. And so you let the toilet bowl fill up, and then you dip the clothes, because it was the the toilet was surrounded by a cement block.
Mm-hmm.
You dip the clothes in and out of the toilet and wash them on the cement block surrounding the toilet bowl.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you just keep changing over until they dry, until they're clean and rinsed. But at about 5 a.m., you take the slightly damp clothes, place them on the cleanly swept concrete floor, and rub the creases out with a prison-made sponge. Then fold them neatly, place them in a pile, put a hand towel over the pile, and stamp on it hard with bare feet, leaving them perfectly ironed. Another hour hanging on the walls, and they'd be ready to wear.
Oh, you sure did find your ways.
Yeah. But imagine wearing the clothes you're wearing now for 6 months, Sonia.
I don't think I can imagine that, Rusty.
And then to retain your dignity, having to wash them in a well-used toilet.
It's impossible to imagine what you went through. It is.
Even if it was just a clean toilet at home, then having to wear them the very next day. Yeah, the humiliation was beyond comprehension. It was another level.
Oh.
Then the horrors still continue. In 2005, so it's 2 years after I went in, Harare City ran out of water.
Mm-hmm.
For 3 years, while in Chikurubi Maximum Security Prison, each prisoner was allocated only one plastic cup of water a day. One cup of dirty orange city runoff water from a nearby dam carried by farm prisoners. That was to drink.
3 years.
For 3 years. To drink, 1 cup to drink, clean your teeth, wash your face, bath, everything. It was unbelievable. Yeah.
1 cup of water per day for 3 years.
Yeah.
And I mean, just surviving that physically is
exactly
incredible.
And very, very sadly, Sonia, after the land invasion chaos, the country ran out of food. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure if you ever followed, but the Zimbabwe dollar crash, when our currency went to trillions to $1. It was during that time. So from 2004 to 2009, which is the time I was in there, we started running out of food.
Oh dear.
And that's why there was no water. I mean, the whole country deteriorated. Mm-hmm. And that's when the guys really started dying. And in my first 6 years, Sonia, I watched over 2,200 guys die.
Wow.
2,200.
I mean, that's hard to digest, because these are people just like you who are in there, and you're in the same condition and same situation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we were all, you fellow inmates. And when guys are dying every day around you, it's a very tough thing to swallow.
Yeah.
Very.
Cool.
Yeah. I just wanted to point out for 17 hours during nighttime lockup, so we were locked up for 20 hours a day. Mm-hmm. From 3 in the afternoon until 8 in the morning, 17 hours, we were locked up. That's called nighttime lockup. And then between 11 and 2 is daytime lockup. Mm-hmm. And during nighttime lockup, you were only allowed to use the cell toilets if it was an emergency for hygiene purposes, because there was no water. Mm-hmm. So after being unlocked at 8 a.m., the 400 of us in our hall, there was 5 halls of 400 guys and one hall of 2,200 guys. But the 400 of us in our hall would make a mad rush to reach one of the 8 hall toilets first. So there were 4 toilets on the first floor, 4 on the second floor, and there were 400 guys. But you can only imagine, 400 guys making a rush for the loo, and you're all waiting in line. And to try and picture this, Sonia. So the toilets are just stainless steel bowls sunk into cement blocks, and they're in a row. There are 4 toilets in a row, and they're divided by walls with no doors.
Okay, but no privacy whatsoever.
There's no privacy whatsoever. Ooh. And you wait your turn in line to climb up on the cement block to do your business, and you turn around, and there are 80 pairs of eyes glued on you waiting to finish. You talk about stage fright.
Wow.
Dignity was non-existent. It was something, very, very tough to get used to.
Yeah, I bet.
I learned in there, Sonia, that the most important things in life cannot be bought. health, loved ones, and friends, in that order. Yeah. And like I said, in my first 6 years, I watched 2,200 guys die, primarily from malnutrition. There was no food. During the cholera outbreak, we had a cholera outbreak in 2008 and 2009 after I'd been moved to a medium security prison. So you get categorized as you go through. The time you have to spend, the less security. So after 5.5 years, I was moved to a medium security prison. And in 8 months, out of 1,200 of us prisoners at Harare Central Prison, 432 guys died in 8 months. That's more than a third of us. It was unbelievable. Yeah, It was horrific.
So even just to make it through physically is beyond imagination, let alone mentally.
Well, the guys are dying in your cell all the time. And there's something, when you try to help someone during the night, that's because diarrhea was a huge problem. Because there was no water. So the prisons were filthy, like stinking, disgusting. You have no idea. And diarrhea was a huge problem. And TB was a very big problem, and obviously HIV. So if anyone had underlying issues, they would perish first. Yeah. When you're watching guys die in your cell almost every day, it leaves a mark in you forever.
Probably would.
Yeah, especially when you're trying to help them. We were some of us healthy guys trying to help the guys. It was tough.
Yeah,
it was tough.
Oh.
And I remember playing cards on the tarred floor of the crowded exercise yard one day with a friend of mine in there, and a guy sitting next to me rolled over dead.
Oh.
And no one around us moved. I mean, we were packed in there, so we couldn't go anywhere. We couldn't go and sit anywhere else. And I just had to turn my back to him, and we carried on playing until prisoner hospital staff collected him. That's how terrible it was in there.
Oh, I mean, just that.
And you could smell dead people continuously, day and night.
It's this very particular sweet smell.
But that particular incident, Sonia, has always left me wondering why that guy died and I didn't. Why so many others lost their lives and I had the privilege of living. And I'll never really know. But what I do know is that it taught me to be humble. You could be the one dying tomorrow and you don't. You learn to be humble and grateful for every little thing about your life.
And life is a gift.
All, in some way, become like desensitized to things in our community at one time or another. It's a surviving mechanism. But if you've lost the ability to empathize, then you have lost what it means to be human. Yeah, it was, I learned so much in there, Sonia. It was unbelievable. I mean, these are just small things I'm touching on. Like after Red Cross took over feeding in March 2009, within a month, Sonia, in the first month, one guy died. After that, not a single person died. And the weekend before they arrived, 11 guys died in one weekend.
So just by providing enough food.
Purely no food. That was it. We were starved. I mean, I was 78 kgs. I was heavy at school. It was crazy. But I remember after Red Cross had taken over feeding, we began a soccer league when the guys got strong again. And being a rugby player, I was the goalkeeper, and I managed to get the prison squad. And I remember it gave us the privilege to play against the officers' side on a field in their compound. And during our jovial march there, singing all the way as fellow players, I asked one of the guards if I could touch my first tree in 6.5 years. And when granted permission, I joyously broke formation and did so. And I clearly remember the roughness of the bark, reminding me of my granddad's forearms, and the distinct smell of that jacaranda tree, which I knew so well.
Wow.
But you have no idea how beautiful and uplifting it felt just to touch a tree and feel green grass again.
That's the real power of tree hugging, but tree hugging in a totally different way. Because you clearly aren't a tree hugger, but what an incredible feeling that must have been.
After 8 years, Sonia, I was transferred to a farm prison. Mm-hmm. I remember that in the first evening, sitting around, it's a farm prison all run on trust.
Okay.
So there's no fences, barbed wire, nothing. It's all on trust.
You had to stay there, but you could move a little bit.
Yes. There was 5,000 acres. Mm-hmm. And I was a tractor driver, and there was cattle, there was crop farming, mm-hmm. there were pigs and chickens. Mm-hmm. So, 100 of us were carefully selected to run a farm for the prison, and all on trust.
Beautiful.
So we were locked up at 9 o'clock at night. So my first evening, sitting around an open fire on old logs and bleached cattle skulls, chatting with all these old Ndebele inmates. Ndebele is a tribe in Zim. Mm-hmm. Just getting lost in their interesting stories and the beauty of the sunset and the dancing flames and the tranquil call of a nightjar and the bright stars and the moon, which I hadn't seen for 8 lonely, long years.
Wow.
I never saw a sunset or a sunrise either for 8 years.
Wow.
And now I appreciate the everyday little things in life, like a soft bed, a hot bath, a tasty meal, spontaneous cuddle from a loved one. Mm-hmm. Because those are the things you miss most when you have it all taken away.
Yeah.
And then, Sonia, there are things we know that rejuvenate us. Mm-hmm. And for me, it's always been nature. I am and will forever be a farm boy from Zimbabwe. Nature, touching a tree, smelling the earth, the feeling of soil in my hands. And these things bring me restoration. Mm-hmm. And for you, it might be hanging out with friends, dancing, reading a good book, or swimming in the ocean. Mm-hmm. Whatever is good for you, do more of it.
I think that's such an important life lesson that so many people don't understand how important it is to do the things that make us happy. And whatever it is. Yeah, let's all do more of it.
Yeah, until you can't do it. And then you realize, I wish I'd done more of that.
Yep.
And a lot of times, Sonia, it's when you wish and you wish and you wish, and suddenly you're too old to do what you were wishing.
Yep.
That's a big problem too. But the other thing is, despite the hell I'd gone through physically and mentally, the worst part was knowing that my beloved children were growing up without me.
Mm-hmm. And that's time you can't regain.
Yeah. We've always been extremely close. And it's a bond I will cherish and protect to my dying day. My son, my proud son, Dusty, only 18 at the time, was always full of ambition. And we joyously discuss and dream of making millions and plan endless projects and adventures. Mm-hmm. He was following in my footsteps and loving every minute of it, ready to take on the world with his dad. And then I was ripped away. And my precious 16-year-old daughter, Sandy, and I had and still have an extraordinarily beautiful bond. Since the baby, she's always been my shadow. And especially she is to me, I am to her. But at 16, I was her anchor. I was everything in her eyes. She confided in me without boundaries and clung to everything I said and did. I loved them beyond expression, and they loved me. And the time they needed me most, I wasn't there. They went through first loves, crushes, dances, 21st birthdays, and entered the wide world, and I wasn't there yet. And it's an annoying feeling knowing that I'm their father and should have been there, but I couldn't be. Yeah. And I don't want anyone listening to this ever to have to feel that way. Make enough time for your loved ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very, very important thing you're saying. Make enough time for your loved ones.
Yeah. And then, Sonia, I wanted to share a few of the big life lessons I learned in prison. So, that even in the depth of such horrendous experiences, I knew I had ultimate control of how I chose to feel and respond. Behind every severity lies an opportunity. And that experience gave me the opportunity to get to know hidden attributes about myself and time to consider some really important things in life. My life in chains taught me many lessons. Mm-hmm. So I'd like to share a few of those with you. So first of all, my spiritual and positive mental attitude.
That is incredible and something we can all learn from.
Yeah. After I was moved to a medium security prison, whilst delivering food one day, my sister asked me, because After 6.5 years, the prison service started allowing relatives to deliver food to their loved ones daily because there were guys that were dying so badly. And my sister gave up she sold her business and gave up her career just to feed me for 4 years. Wow. And she was married with 2 kids. So it was,
what an incredible sister you have.
Yeah, it shows you the power of loved ones. It's loved ones is something else. Anyway, so she brought me some food, and then she said to me, "Do you want an iPod?" So I said to her, "What's an iPod?"
You had no clue.
Yeah. So I said, "No." She said, "It's a thing that plays music." So I said, "Well, how big is it?" Indicating this big
ghetto blaster.
She pointed out this small flat little thing. So I said, "Well, how many songs does it play?" She said, "About 1,000." I said, "No ways." So where do you put all the CDs?
So you had definitely missed a few years of Apple development.
If you look, I was in from 2003 to 2013. The CDs came and went. Mm-hmm. I mean, the smartphone started. If you said to me in the first 6 years like then, to take a picture of someone on a phone and send it, that was like Star Wars. I mean, there's no way.
Yeah.
The things had evolved. I mean, it was a whole new world when I came up. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so the following day, the iPod arrived under the salad. But a week later, a cell phone was sneaked in too, one of those cheap Nokia things, that we had longer, and with rechargeable batteries. And I had guards charging the batteries, and everything was going perfectly because my sister was paying the guards. I mean, it was medium security. You couldn't dream of it in a maximum security prison. But in medium security prison, you're only locked up for 16 hours a day. Mm-hmm. And security is a lot more relaxed.
Okay.
And after 3 months, an envious prisoner reported me.
Oh, no.
After an unexpected search, unbelievably, through some quick maneuvering with on-site guards, nothing was discovered. But I was sent to solitary confinement anyway for 2 years.
What? Yeah. On your own, solitary for 2 years?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
But after experiencing that precious little link to the outside world, I had to get my phone back, and I did, which made a huge difference. Everything was going perfectly until 18 months when one of the friendly guards approached my spile 5 a.m. and whispered, "Russ, they're coming for your phone." And there's no way of getting a phone out of there. But someone had brought me a protein powder about a month before, and it had to go through the doctor and security. It was a big story to get it in there. And when I got it, I opened it and broke that silver seal. Tasted it. I'd never seen this stuff before. And when I put the seal back and closed it, the next time I opened it, the seal had stuck. Ooh. So I saved it to hide my phone. So, because I only had a phone. I didn't, the iPod, I set out again. It was too dangerous. So that morning I opened it, broke the seal, took half the powder out, wrapped the phone in plastic, put it in, put the powder back, put the seal on and closed it. 6 o'clock, the guards arrive. What they do is they make you strip naked, then you jump with your legs open like you're hiding something. And you all walk out, 1,200 guys, stark naked, into the courtyard, and they do the search. Anyway, after the search, I come back in my cell, and everything is upside down everywhere. But my protein powder, still in good shape.
Yes.
5 minutes later, I'm summoned to the security office. I walk in there, and there are 4 guards standing, one seated behind a desk and an empty chair. I hadn't sat in a chair for 7.5 years. And the guy says, "Take a seat." So I thought there was something funny going on here. So I sat down, which felt good. He said, "Do you have a girlfriend called Karen?" So I said, "No." I said, "I had one before prison called Karen." He said, "Okay. When did you last talk to her?" I said, "Long ago, before prison." He said, "Are you sure?" I said, "Yeah." So he hands me a letter addressed to me from Karen. "So now talking to you on the phone the other night, you sound so positive."
No. Yeah.
After some intense questioning, the story just came to me, and I said, "No, Karen was having lunch in Bulawayo, which is a city in Zimbabwe. And she met this lady, and they started chatting. And soon realized that they both had boyfriends in the same prison. So the lady said, 'Let me call my boyfriend, who's a guard in there, and he can call Russ, and you guys can have a chat.' So I used the guard's phone. But after I couldn't tell them what the guard's name was, they didn't buy it.
Good idea, but didn't work.
No, that didn't work. An hour later, I'm escorted up to the officer in charge's office. When you go up there, it's big trouble. And I get there, and there's like 15 big brass officers all standing in a half circle. Officer in charge, his big desk, and my empty chair in the middle. He said, take a seat. Him and I got on really well. But he said to me, if you don't tell me what that God's name is, your life in this prison is going to change. I said, officer, I don't know his name. And then the question started. How tall was he? How old? What rank? Where did you make the call? How long ago did you make the call? And I answered as best I could, and they were getting furious. And then the head of the soccer, he said, do you want to talk to the officer in charge on your own? So I said, yes, please. So they all leave, closed the door. I said, officer, we've both been through hell. We watched hundreds of guys die. I've donated endless stuff to the prison service, soccer balls, volleyball net, soccer boots and uniform for the squad. I said, can't you just let your son go? I mean, the officers were stealing all kinds of stuff. You know, everyone was battling in the country. And he said, Russ, I don't care about you, but I want that God's name now. He was furious. So I said, well, I don't know his name, officer. He said, okay. He calls the officers. He says, put him on death row in the docks. Yeah.
Oh, my God. So what was already hell turned into
a nightmare.
Wow.
So they escorted me over to the condemned section. They used to hang guys in those days. And I think there were 56 cells, 52 were full of guys waiting to be hung, and there were 4 empty cells. The cells were 3 meters by 1 meter and 3 meter high, so the same as my solitary. But I was put in the dark cell because the only vent was covered by a staircase and the electric light didn't work.
So no more looking at doves.
They made me strip naked, gave me 3 worn-out, lice-ridden, filthy blankets, a 5-liter container cut off at the top as a toilet, same as solitary, and 1 liter of water. They locked me in there for 23 hours and 45 minutes a day. I was allowed out 5 minutes in the morning to clean my teeth, 5 minutes at 10 o'clock to have a shower, 5 minutes at 3 o'clock to prepare for lockup.
Wow.
It was cold, lonely, and dark, like being buried alive. I couldn't even see my hand. Desperate, Sonia, on day 6. Now, I'd been testing my faith all along. You know, I prayed like crazy in the first year, nothing happened. So, you know, I'd given up. I thought, well, you know, God's forgotten about me. But I got on my knees on the 6th day, and I prayed to God for help. And I'll never forget the feeling of like warm water being poured over me, and had no idea what it was. And I sat on the floor, leaning against the wall. In 30 minutes, I faintly heard my Afrikaans mate shouting from the soccer ground, hey, Russ, everything's okay, my mate. Don't worry. Everything's okay. So I jumped up. I said, hey, fool, don't worry, Russ. Everything's okay. So I thought, okay. Laid out on the concrete, looking up at the darkness. Within 10 minutes, I unlocked my door. And the sound of those bolts that goes right through. Chucked me my clothes. Said, the officer in charge wants to see you. So I go out into the blinding sun, covering my eyes. It was very bright after being in that dark hole. Crossed the courtyard, up the stairs to his office. And his exact words were, he said, hello, Russ. I said, hello, officer. He said, have you remembered the God's name yet? I said, no, officer. He said, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to leave it in God's hands. You can go back to your cell. And at the exact moment when I was praying, my sister was paying him $200 to get me out of there. So that was a huge turning point in my spiritual life. And I'm very happy to see that. I walk every day with Jesus now. Yeah, it was an amazing feeling. You know, I still didn't go home for 2.5 years, but I knew that there was a bigger picture.
And you knew that you had support up there.
That there were bigger plans for me, yeah. You know, before prison, I was a big fish in a little pool going nowhere, like a hamster on a wheel, you know, little bull away, and this big guy, lots of money, you know, flying high, thinking he's bulletproof. And now, Sonia, in those days, it was all about me, you know, my empire, more money, and me. And now it's about helping other people. You know, now I'm a small fish in a whole wide world making a huge difference. Yeah, and I have a purpose. And a satisfaction I get from helping others far outweighs the millions I was making before. Yeah. And when I look back on it all, you know, I'm being honest when I tell you, I thank God for my 10 years in prison, because it's released me from the little cage that I was in, thinking I was such a big boy. And now into the whole wide world. I mean, I talk all over the world all the time now, virtually on stage.
And you're an incredible keynote speaker. I've seen you live, and I can say goosebumps all over the whole room. And people really are touched by your story and by what you can teach them. It's incredible.
Thanks, Sonia. Yeah. But the lesson there as well, Sonia, is that no matter what hardships you're going through in life, just remember you're being prepared for where you're going. Mm-hmm. God has a plan for each and every one of us.
Yeah. As long as we accept it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, Sonia, I learned not to let past thoughts hurt me. Mm-hmm. The past only exists in your head. It can only come to life if you let it. Mm-hmm. Jesus once said in Matthew 6:27, can any one of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life?
That's a good one.
Yeah, I was forced to live in the moment in prison, and it's one of the biggest lessons I still practice today. Mm-hmm. And finding positives in all the negatives going on around me brought hope.
Yeah.
Hope was a huge part of getting through prison life. Hope is the anchor of your soul. I mean, I just clung to hope, and it's what kept me sane and grounded in there. Mm-hmm. Hope allowed me to see the light despite all the darkness.
And there was a lot of darkness for you.
You can't believe it. And never let your hopes, not your troubles, shape your future. Mm-hmm. And never look for hope outside of yourself, Sonia. To find it, you need to look within. If we when you put in a cage like that and you have no outside distraction, mm-hmm. you dig deep within yourself, you'll find a peace that we all have that'll bring hope. I clung to hope all the time. If you'd said to me in year 1, you're going home in year 3, I would have said never. 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks I could live with. Anything beyond that was too painful. Mm-hmm. And I counseled myself on how to think through the physical impact my thoughts had on me. Mm-hmm.
And it's incredible what the mind has in terms of an effect on the body and on your overall life.
100%. 100%. If I thought about my fiance with another guy or my mates on fishing trips, it hurt inside. And I'd block them all out until I found that peace again.
Or the injustice of being imprisoned for something you had never done.
Yeah, no, exactly. And then to be able to find happiness in even the smallest things that happen in prison. Be healthy. Those who couldn't died.
Yeah.
Life in prison or in Las Vegas is still just life. Mm-hmm. What you make of it, no matter where you are. And I had everything I could ever wish for. And in moments, it was all gone.
Yeah.
Live every moment for the pleasure of the moment.
Oh, yeah, that's an important one. That's a very important one.
The most common question I'm asked is, how did you get through there mentally? And I had this fantasy girlfriend named Cherie. We'd fly all over the world in our private jet and catch marlin in Mexico and catch, fish amongst the elephant in Africa. And I created this beautiful world I could go into to get away from it all and feel happy again. But I wanted to know scientifically how the mind coped with those situations. So I did some research on it with Dr. Caroline Leaf's work. Mm-hmm. Every time we think, see, and feel, our mind generates a signal that affects every cell in our bodies. We have between 75 and 100 trillion cells. Thinking is 98% of that signal.
Wow.
So what you think actually affects every cell in your body and brain physically. I'm going to say that again. What you think actually affects every cell in your body and brain physically. Mm-hmm. And research shows that between 75 and 95% of illnesses come from our thought life. We have about 30,000 thoughts a day. So thoughts play a massive role in diseases in our bodies. But by the same token, it can be just the opposite. When you're thinking correct thoughts, you generate very healthy signals that affect your blood chemistry and build more healthy cells.
It works both ways.
Yeah, so our thoughts create who we are physically. And it was my happy thought life, even though it had to be a fantasy that kept me healthy and sane.
But that fantasy was your reality in prison. And it kept you sane.
Yeah, but not many people can make that their reality. they look at the negative, feel sorry for what
and you would have had 1,000 things to be upset about, to be devastated about.
Exactly. Then the forgiveness side, Sonia.
Oh, yes, I really want to hear about that.
Yeah, the humiliation of being labor and murder and terrible conditions were extremely hard to deal with. And as was the pain of my bitterness, anger, hatred, frustration, revenge. I mean, I hated them.
Unfair, so incredibly unfair.
Yeah. And initially, I'd lie there for hours, wishing every terrible thing on each of them in turn, the poacher, the police, the judge, the ministry.
Understandably.
Hey?
Understandably.
Yeah. And then one day, I was struck by the realization that they'd all forgotten about me long ago. And here I was, consumed by the unfairness of it all, and they, blissfully unaware of the evil I wished on them every day. In the end, I was only hurting myself.
Yep.
I was carrying all that in my head and beating myself up for nothing. The single biggest lesson I learned in prison was true forgiveness.
Wow.
And for me, it was bigger than anything I could have achieved on my own. True forgiveness was inspired by God Almighty. And so letting go. Wow. It was a huge weight off my shoulders. And I learned to live in the moment from then on.
How many years did it take you to get to this point where you could let go?
1 year.
Oh, that's relatively quick, I have to say.
It was because within that year, I was just drained. I mean, the anger, hatred, and bitterness was draining me every day.
Yeah.
And I remember the exact moment, because a lot of people ask me how I managed to forgive them. And I remember as clear as anything, working in that exercise yard. Now, I'd questioned my faith a lot. Where was God? I've been going through hell here. And I looked up and I just said to myself, Lord, take care of them and let me get through this road that's been put in front of me. What goes around comes around. They will get what they deserve. Their judgment day will come. And the amazing thing, Sonia, it wasn't a gradual process. It was an instant feeling. Wow. It was like I had a secret that I was keeping for years and years and worried that it was going to get out. And then one day I just decided I'm going to tell the guys. It was out, over. I'm free. And that, people don't understand that forgiveness is freedom. It frees yourself, because those people that did that to you, they forgot about you long ago. You're the one that's freeing yourself. And the feeling that forgiveness, the freedom that it brings you, it's unbelievable. Because
that again goes back to having positive thoughts and what they do for you physically and how they helped you through.
Correct. You can look at it in two ways. You can forgive, forget, and move forward, or you can retain, remember, and regret. The choice is yours.
Yeah.
And if you say, I'll forgive, but I'll never forget, then you still remember and will never move forward.
Yeah.
You can't bounce back from anything unless you forgive those who you believe have done you wrong. And only when you forgive and let go of the past can you be fully free to move forward to your full potential.
Yeah. And build your own future.
Yeah.
Wow.
If you have anger or resentment towards anyone in any way, it will eventually destroy you, because that is what emotions do.
And probably in your situation with so much hardship around you, it would have probably killed you.
Oh, it did. It did. And I lost everything,
But I also believe that if you had not learned to forgive, you might not have made it out of the prison.
I 100% believe that. Because in the first year, I beat myself up big time because of what they were doing to me. Yeah. When you're innocent, it's different. I think if you're guilty, you're just paying your time, But when you're innocent, it's hard. It's tough. And then gratitude was another big lesson I learned, Sonia. We all want too much in our lives, concentrating on what we haven't got instead of being grateful for what we have. And for me, giving thanks to God every day goes a long way for, my health, a beautiful wife, a lovely home, a soft bed, running water, and so on. When there's no food, no water, and people are dying all around you, you become grateful for the fact that you're still breathing. Yeah. And another day is a blessing. When you lie in a cell with 78 other inmates, and your breath is not even your own, gratitude suddenly has a different meaning altogether.
Yeah, and that's real gratitude. And to be able to have gratitude in such a situation, that really shows your positive strength and the power within you.
Yeah. Or accepting that what I went through cannot be changed, and being grateful for what it taught me has unlocked my vision for my future. The healthiest of all human emotions is gratitude.
Yeah, I believe that too, because it changes so much in us and in who we are and who we can become.
If we can appreciate who we are, what we have, and what we've achieved in our lives, and be grateful for those things every day, your whole outlook on life will change. Yeah. Everything.
And I think you're also not saying that everything is great. It doesn't always have to be great, but we need to see the positives. We need to be grateful for what we have, even if sometimes things don't go to plan.
Yeah. And then, Sonia, I wish I could express the happy, bubbly, exciting, beautiful feeling I felt as I walked out those prison gates to freedom after 10 years of hell. Because people don't appreciate freedom. And I've realized that even when you're not in prison, there are ways in which we imprison ourselves.
Too many ways.
Badly selected careers, being obsessed with money and ambition in the corporate world, even unhappy marriages.
Yeah, wrong partners that we choose and stay in.
When you have your freedom completely taken away, you realize that you're actually in prison too. And when I look back on it all, it makes me wish I could somehow get through to people how precious and priceless freedom is. If you look at your life as it is, how free are you within your circumstances? Yeah. Freedom is not just not being in prison. Freedom is the ability to make a choice and act on it. Freedom is letting go of what you can't control.
Yeah.
Freedom is forgiveness. Freedom is being free from negativity. Freedom brings health.
I think that's a really powerful one. Freedom is being free of negativity.
Yeah.
That's beautiful and so powerful. And that's in our own hands to control this.
Yes. If you can be free in all areas of your life, then you'll reach your full potential.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, people often ask me if I resent them for what they did to me. I spent $42,000 in 1 year with private investigators trying to find the assumed deceased. Like looking for a needle in a haystack.
Yeah.
Some stranger entered the remote area where he's living. The word spread like wildfire and he'd go into hiding. They'd taken 10 years of my life. All my companies went broke, and I was just giving them more and more. So I don't give them one more second of my thoughts anymore, Sonia. That's all behind me.
Yeah.
Instead of my health, a beautiful wife, a lovely family, and a fantastic future ahead of me. When you go through what I went through, what I endured, they break you in every way. Your confidence, your spirit, your soul, everything. And no matter how confident you were when you went in, it's really tough to build yourself up again is really tough.
Yeah.
And I had huge scars that for years I never thought would ever heal. I had a huge void in my life that I felt I would never fill until I met my present wife, Sandra.
She's beautiful.
When I knew there was something very special and different about this lady.
Yeah. And when I say she's beautiful, I mean inside and out. I met her and had the privilege of meeting her, and she is your soulmate. Yes,
100%. Within 3 years, Sonia, she healed me completely.
Wow.
And I'm now, I have that peace and happiness once again. And the joys and the love that I experience every day now, I never have imagined it ever.
That's so powerful.
I just thank you, Jesus, for bringing her into my life.
Well, and thank you also to yourself, I would say, for allowing yourself to bring out your hero and to get through it with such a positive, strong mindset. That's unique, Rusty. That's That's really unique.
Now, the company you keep influences your thinking influences your actions influence your character, and your character determines your destiny.
Totally agree.
In conclusion,
our own hands. It's in our own hands.
100%. And in conclusion, Sonia, I was fortunate. I'd made it big, was very successful. And possibly during that time, I became a bit arrogant.
Yep, it happens.
Has made me realize that I'm just a normal human being.
Mm-hmm.
You can't value your life based on your title, your success, or your material possessions.
No, you shouldn't. You definitely shouldn't.
If you had everything taken away from you right now, who would be left?
Yeah.
What would people see looking at you as a person?
Mm-hmm.
We need to look at our core values more deeply and see how we can change lives and maybe make a difference in this world. There were times in there when I just felt this was the end. Mm-hmm. I didn't have the mental strength left to overcome more of those never-ending challenges.
Yeah.
But from the bowels of despair comes this realization that just as my mind had helped drag me through those depths that far,
mm-hmm.
so pull me out of them.
Wow.
And each and every one of us, when you dig deep enough, can find that inner strength.
Yeah.
To life's toughest times and deepest holes, out of our cages, out of the dark. And every one of you here today is faced with challenges, day in and day out. Yep. Those that you look for and those that sneak up on you from behind. But who you are and the depth of your determination is what's going to elevate you to become someone that people will look up to and forever remember.
Wow. And that's the true key to happiness. And when I first met you, I met a man so deeply content, well-balanced, and beautiful that it's incredible to see what you went through, but it's so incredibly powerful to see how you got through it and what an inspiration you now are to people around the globe. You truly are an inspiration. And Beating Chains is a book that I can only highly recommend to anyone. You are easy to be found on the internet. You can be booked as a speaker. People can read your books. Every single soul that you touch is a soul that has a better life. Thanks, Sonia. Yeah, my book is going through the publisher in the UK. And next month, it'll go worldwide next month. Woohoo! Yeah, so it goes to the UK, Europe, Australia, New Zealand, and then early next year it'll go to the US. Wow. Yeah, and the speaking engagement. So if anyone wants to book me, it's www.beatingchains.com. Not breaking chains, beating chains. Beating chains, and not your name, Rusty Labuschagne, because that is a tough one. Injustice. So Beating Chains, I think that's an easy one to remember. Rusty, you are an inspiration. Thank you for sharing your story. I'm touched, I'm moved, and I have learned so much from you already over the few years that I've known you. And I just hope that people can take a little bit of the Rusty mindset into their lives and just make their lives a happier, freer place. Thank you, Sonia. Thanks for that opportunity and those kind words. Thank you. And thank you so much for sharing so openly and for being the wonderful person that you are. Rusty Labuschagne, Beating Chains. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Rusty Labuschagne. What an incredible man. What an incredible story. And how deeply, deeply inspiring. I'm filled with gratitude. I'm filled with humbleness. And I'm eternally thankful for Rusty to share his story here on the Phoenix Mindset podcast so that you can also learn from Rusty and get inspired of how to lead a happy, content, and truly free life. Because it really does lie in our hands and only in our hands, how we decide to lead our lives Follow Rusty on beatingchains.com. And if you like this podcast, please do help me as well grow it by following it, by rating it, by commenting, by sharing it with your friends, and by simply helping the Phoenix to grow. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. This is Sonja Piontek from the Phoenix Mindset Podcast.